expertise and capacity to bear. The last point I'd like to make, if I may, Vincent, is that at the same time as the Energy Action Plan was announced last year, we mobilized the Resource Mobilization Fund to ensure that, again, we could help capacitate government directly where we go and procure specialist skills, and we then donate them to the Presidency to be deployed into the National Energy Crisis Committee or indeed into the National Logistics Crisis Committee. I think that capacitating these structures with the requisite skills where they're accountable in those cases to government, again, is a key ingredient to making sure that we can effectively progress. Thank you very much. Rudy, over to you.
Thanks, Vincent. Thanks, Martin. Just building on Martin, I think it's quite important perhaps to express that the collaboration that we have with business is not to engage on policy or government decisions, and I think it's important to emphasize this. Business colleagues have come with a genuine offer of wanting to support and collaborate where there are shortages of skills and expertise. And that's really where the major focus has been. And I think it's quite important to emphasize this. So this is not about government policy. This is not about economic policy. This is not about decisions that a government has to make. It is very granular, specifically trying to address where there are particular weaknesses in the system to be able to do that. And as Martin reflected, I mean, this has largely started with the National Energy Crisis Committee. As you know, the Energy Action Plan was announced by President Ramaphosa in July last year. We set up a whole set of work streams. One of the first work streams was to try and deal with plant performance. If you remember, there are two specific aspects that we're looking at, largely so. One, to improve plant performance of Eskom, and the second one is to try and get as much megawatts as possible onto the grid to try and address the issue around energy security. Now, what, for example, has happened, if I may use this as a good example, because this is quite important, is the business colleagues, for example, given the area of expertise and experience, have offered to assist in targeting those power stations where they could produce maximum amount of energy and help to reduce the incidence of load shedding. And so we've identified 6 power stations, for instance. What business has done is mobilize relevant technical experts to assist power station managers to enter into an MOA with Eskom and to be able to assist around some of those technical aspects where they can bring that experience into Eskom around assisting in dealing with technical aspects. Another example, for instance, is that you may be familiar that I think the Minister of Electricity has on countless occasions have expressed the problem with regard to the load factor at Ankelig, which is one of the open cycle gas turbines. And load factor really just means the burn rate, right? And so the ability to burn more diesel, of course, happened at Ankelig in particular, partly because it was not able to optimize its supply. And what we did do is to get a team from B4SA to do a diagnostics and provide a number of recommendations on how one could deal with the load factor and improve the burn rate from about 17% to about 26%. That exercise has been done. It is going through a process of the Eskom management and board implementing those recommendations. A further example has been, for instance, you may know, of course, the 3 flues at Kusile 1, 2, and 3 had collapsed during the course of November last year. The business colleagues again had provided project management expertise, and this was taken up by Eskom, where they were able to assist in dealing with project managing and ensuring that it is on time. I'm happy to announce that we're close to finalizing and switching on Kusile Unit 3. I understand that all the approval processes have been completed. But again, I've used 3 examples of where we think this kind of collaboration has been quite critical in getting business to support to bring in the right team. Now, we're duplicating that So given our experience of the energy action plan that we've done over the last year and the support that business provided, we are duplicating that because the second biggest constraint other than energy is our freight logistics system, and that means rail and ports, right? And we set up a similar structure, which, as Martin had said, is the National Logistics Crisis Committee. We're again developing a partnership model. It's not about policy, it's about specific instances where business can play an important role in developing and supporting interventions. And remember, there are two things here. One is the immediate intervention to improve volumes on our freight network, our rail freight network, and of course to make recommendations around how best business could assist in improving performance in the ports as well. And that's been quite critical. We set up an important team again to look at the immediate operational performances. Key business experts have been brought in. We're looking at 5 corridors, iron ore, manganese, chrome magnetite, coal, and the general container freight lines. And so specifically, we're looking at how do we deploy relevant experts that have been provided and are assisting from business to turn around those corridors so that we can improve volumes and for both Net and for Eskom. Ultimately, the decisions still arise. This is not intended to undermine the executive or the GCE or the board. The final decision remains with the board. It remains with the executive team of those two entities. What we are doing is to develop a collaborative effort where we're able to provide the level of expertise and they are able to learn and think on some of these interventions very, very differently. So those are kind of, some of the interventions, and in a very practical sense, when I refer to, and Martin referred to a collaborative effort, is good examples of